Hi, everybody. Welcome to today's webinar with the Missouri and Ohio Collection Analysis Initiatives. Today, we're going to be talking about simplifying audits of large collections. And this is part of an ongoing webinar series run in partnership between TeachingBooks, the State Library of Ohio, and the Missouri State Library. My name is Jake Stone. I'm the project coordinator for these initiatives, and I'm joined today by my fantastic colleagues. I'll give them a chance to introduce themselves right now. Let's start with Aaron.
Hi, everybody. Thank you, Jake. My name is Erin Kelsey, and I'm a library consultant at the State Library of Ohio, and excited to be talking about this topic kind of for the first time, a good deep dive today. So looking forward to it.
Hi, everyone. I'm Leisha Thompson. I'm the Youth Services Coordinator for the Missouri State Library. And I, too, am excited about talking about this one and getting to see a large collection audit because I haven't seen it in process yet. I've seen the results. So I'm excited as well.
My name is Susanna Gilbert. I'm an implementation and training specialist with TeachingBooks. I'm partially here because I'm the point person for all of our training in the state of Missouri, but I'm also here because I'm just a big old nerd about collection development. So I'm very excited to talk about this with you today.
All nerds are welcome. We've emphasized it in every webinar so far, and we just will only continue to. So a little bit of background on where these initiatives came from. These current partnerships between TeachingBooks, the state libraries of Missouri and Ohio, are bringing ongoing professional development and quality tools to every library staff member in those two states. And these tools are here to help you affirm for yourself that the titles that you're keeping in your collections for children and young adult readers are affirming the needs of those readers in your community. So we'll show you one of those tools in depth today, the Collection Analysis Tool, which is our strongest tool that you can use to both analyze and evaluate collections and then find new books or additional books that can meet needs and fill gaps in your collections. And we'll start off, we'll say this a few times, but you have ongoing support from myself in both states and from Leisha and Aaron in Missouri and Ohio, respectively. So here's the contact info for myself and for Leisha. And then for myself and Aaron. Leisha, Aaron, anything that y'all would like to say about these projects before we move ahead to the core of this webinar?
I can just give a little background about how the project came to be for Ohio. So we've been working with TeachingBooks for 3-ish years, and we're coming up on our 2-year anniversary of the launch of the Ohio Collection Analysis Initiative. So we're excited about that milestone. But Jake and I and the TeachingBooks crew have been spending the last 2 years just trying to get the word out, doing workshops and webinars like this, and presenting at conferences just to spread the word and help everybody get used to the power of this tool and learning all of the amazing things it can do. So we're excited that in the 2 years since we've launched, we've got over 800 users and users in all of our 88 counties in Ohio, which was a goal of ours. So we're just excited that the news and the word has spread that far about the initiative and that we're getting lots of users.
Aaron, your usage is amazing. And I love that you've hit every county within your state.
It doesn't happen a lot for a lot of things. So it's just something exciting.
Missouri actually started out a little differently. We began with a statewide license for the teaching book platform. And we're actually in our 3rd year with the TeachingBooks platform available statewide to everyone within the state. Lots of promotion, lots of work with the TeachingBooks team, Susanna, Kim, Nick. And this is our 1st year with the Collection Analysis Initiative. So again, we're working really hard to get the word out. bringing a lot of new people in and promoting where we can. And actually, Nick will be here in April for the Missouri Association of School Librarians Conference to promote both our teaching books contract in general and then also the collection analysis initiative along with me.
Thanks, Leisha, and thanks, Aaron. Teaching Books is really grateful to be able to do these initiatives in partnership with you and continue this relationship we have. So excited to be here with you, excited to be talking to everyone here in the webinar today or watching after the fact about large collections, because this is something that comes up a lot in questions that are asked. So very quickly, just to round out the orientation segment of today's webinar, why should my library or school library use these tools? Again, this is all about building confidence in you and in your titles, that those are meeting your community needs and giving you effective and simple tools to help you map out those collections. Everything in this program is also personalized and individualized for you, ranging from the materials that we've created. If you're a Missouri public librarian, you're getting different materials than if you're a Missouri school librarian or teacher. If you're an Ohio school librarian or teacher, you're getting different materials from that of Ohio public librarians. So everything is very tailored for who you are and the work that you're doing, but also you're getting individual one-on-one support with me, with Aaron, or with Leisha. You always have the opportunity to connect with us at office hours or webinars or email. And I'm meeting with people over Zoom and phone all the time. So we really want to be here for you and let you know that you have guides through this process. We're not just setting you loose with these tools in the world of your book collections. We want you to feel supported and affirmed as you're doing this. So today we're going to take a very quick bird's eye view of analyzing small collections, which is different from what we're going to be doing with the rest of the work, but it's a good way to differentiate the two processes. Then we're going to get to some core goals and questions and an overview of tools, followed by a full demonstration of how you would analyze a large collection with 4,400 titles in it. Then we're going to get to some frequently asked questions that we've compiled from questions that users have asked us in the last day or over the course of the last few months or year. And then we'll talk about reflections and some other materials that you have to share and document your findings. And again, the goal here is that you feel just a little bit more equipped when you return to your library, that you feel like 1% more confident knowing how to use these tools and carrying this forward in your own work, because that's really what matters to us. So here's this quick walkthrough. Collection analysis in a nutshell. The very first thing you want to do is identify a collection. In the case of today, this can be a large collection like my entire YA fiction or my entire picture books collection, but it could also be something small. And we do encourage you to start small with something like staff picks or new books, new releases, or a topical or thematic collection for a holiday that's coming up, anything that serves a particular purpose. Then you're going to import those books by scanning them or copy and pasting them into a spreadsheet or into the TeachingBooks Collection Analysis Tool. And you can do that by pasting a list of titles and authors or ISBNs. You can scan them in, as our colleague Deb is demonstrating there with her barcode scanner and her phone camera. Or you can even upload a spreadsheet, and that's what we're going to be doing primarily today. You can upload a spreadsheet with all that information in it. And then you'll immediately receive insights like this that tell you things like the balance of fiction and nonfiction, how diverse your collection is in terms of cultural experience areas, how many of your books have won awards, what the median year of publication is for your books. You can get all these fantastic insights. You can also find out what's not included and then find suggestions of books to fill those gaps. So there's a ton of information here when you get down to this level. But when you've got X thousand number of books in front of you and you're trying to figure out how to analyze them, getting to this part can be a little bit more of a daunting task. And we want this to feel manageable. We want it to feel approachable. So that's what we're going to focus on today. The very last thing here is that once you sign in to TeachingBooks for the first time, or every time, if you're a part of this initiative, the first thing you'll see is our collection analysis homepage. This is the one for public librarians in Missouri, but there are different ones depending on who you are. When we go to the real site in a minute, we're going to be on the Ohio School Library side. So just know that if you see different colors, if you're following along with us at home or right now watching the webinar, know that that is why you're seeing different color schemes. Okay, so today we're really excited to work through an actual collection that one of our users worked on with me a few months back, and they gave me permission to use it as a demonstration, as a sample in this webinar. So the goal is to get from here, and this is the spreadsheet that this person sent me with all of their books, barcode, call number, whether they were checked in or missing or checked out, the title, ISBN, author, the year they came out. We want to get from this to this, and then eventually to this. So that's our goal for today. Before we jump in, we just want to illustrate a little bit about the difference between small and large collections. So here I am now on the home page, the landing page for the Ohio Collection Analysis Initiative. And if I scroll down, you'll find two buttons here: small collections under 200 titles and large collections. Now, previously, we've always gone to small collections, and that's where we're going to start just for today. And I'm going to ask Susanna for some help in looking at a sample list from a webinar we did last week, which I'll open up in this tab right here. Are we seeing this engaging summer reading titles list?
We are. So this is a list we created in last week's webinar. We analyzed it, we added to it, we analyzed it again and took a look at the information that we got. And we wanted to start here today, in case you haven't used this tool before, to get a little bit of a sneak peek into the kind of information we have. So Jake, if you go to that list analysis report button, you'll see we've got that little triangle icon and a link there. And that's going to show up on any list on the site. So if you're interested in exploring, you can create or find any list and you'll be able to get this information in a list analysis report. So we can see here, we've got at a glance, there are 44 titles, 15 genres, 16 cultural experiences, and so on. We've got 98% diverse books and 98% award winners, which were things we were trying to accomplish when we were augmenting this particular list last week. And then we've got all of that broken down into some lovely little charts and graphs there. And we can always click into any of those. So if you're curious to see, which are the nonfiction titles on this list, it'll open up in a separate tab there. So lots of information, recency, year published. We've got our cultural experience details, of course, and then genre, curricular area, and of course, we still do have some things that are not included. So we did not manage to add every single category to this particular list, but that is not always the goal.
Right. So we're really proud of what we did last week. We ended with this list of 44 titles, and it met a lot of our needs. It checked a lot of our boxes. We've got a lot of different readers represented here, and we left feeling really good. But this was 44 titles, right? Not 4,000 titles, just 44. We think we started with a list of 12, and then we added 32 new ones. So that process was very intentional, and it took us some time to find the right books, add them in, and see what kind of a difference it made. But what does this process really look like if you do it with 4,400 titles instead of 44 titles? So that brings us over to our sample collection for today. And let's zoom out for a sec. This is our collection. You want to analyze this collection, and your core objective is to get a sense for the overall picture, who's represented in these 4,400 books. You want to make changes to specific sections when needed, and you want to find out how those changes will impact the entire collection. Those are our goals when it comes to this list of 4,400 books. So for this, when we're on our homepage here, instead of clicking small collections, which is going to bring you to the custom reading lists page, where we built a list like this. We're gonna click large collections. And this brings us to the collection analysis reports page. Now here is where you can find every list analysis report that you've created in the past. So here's one of the ones we were working on a few weeks ago for our previous webinar. And then we've got some other webinar lists here that we were working on. So all of these are saved here, and I can continue adding new titles into these, creating new versions, V2, V3, V4, adding and weeding from these collections just to experiment. So that's where we're headed with this one. But right now, this collection is not really in a place to analyze. If we wanted to upload this spreadsheet, there are some things that we would have to do to the spreadsheet to make it work with the tool. So back here on this page, if I scroll up, here are the options where you can import titles for a report. And these options are just like the ones we walked you through with small collections, just on a much larger scale. So you could paste a list of titles and authors. And here you can see there are a few questions here. What do you want the name of your collection to be? What category is it? And then where do you want these titles to go? So every time you're importing titles, you can either create a brand new report, or you can import them into something that already exists. So let's say, just for instance, I wanted to import these 4,400 titles into my graphic novel sample. That would then add these titles to the titles that were already in that list. So let's stick with create a new report. And I could just grab a bunch of these titles and a bunch of these authors and copy and paste them in, and we'd be in business. I could do the same thing with a list of ISBNs. Here's the options here, and I just grab the ISBNs, and we're good to go. But you might be noticing a problem right away, which is that these titles have authors in them, and these ISBNs have other things in them, like paperback notation or the price of the book. There's a lot of extraneous data that comes in when you're exporting data from your own ILS or your own library management software. So the very first thing that we need to do when we get a collection like this is clean it up. And there are some guidelines for cleaning it up on this page. If you were to go to upload a CSV file, there are some rules right here. At the first, there are 3 columns here in our CSV file that we're aiming for. We want title, author, and ISBN, and we want them in that order. And we also need headers. So that's what we got to focus on. And that's what we're going to do with this list. The other key reminder that I want to make sure we are clear about before we jump into this is that you always have help and support in doing this work. You are not expected to, I shouldn't say that. It's not a prerequisite. Mastering Excel is not a prerequisite of doing this collection analysis work. That's what we are here to help with. That's why you reach out to us. That's why my name is all over this page and on this page. And if you were to click into your step-by-step handbook, it's on a lot of those pages too, because we want you all to feel supported in going through this. So what we're going to show you is a fair bit of technical work today, working with Excel and with CSV files, but that's not something that you need to know. All you need to do is figure out a way to get collection information out of your ILS and onto a page like this so that we can help you. Does that work as a key reminder? So I said what we needed to say. Okay. All right. So again, this is a real list that someone sent me. And you can see here there's barcode, call number, status, title, ISBN, author, library, and pub year. The only things that matter here are these 3 columns. And so the first step that I took was in a new tab, I edited this, I grabbed everything, I dragged it over, and I separated the titles, the authors, and the ISBNs. I also did something else here. You can see these titles are much cleaner. And that's because I grabbed these titles and I used a function called text to columns. Again, not something that you have to do and not something that I'm going to showcase here because that's not your responsibility to deal with. That's my job. But there are tools in Excel that can help separate things so that you end up with 3 neat columns here: title, author, and ISBN. Okay, so these are our 4,400 books. We've got them in a format that works now. We've got our headers and we've got our titles, and I can go all the way down and see that we actually have 4,700 books. There's one other thing that we did here, because the person that I was working with not only wanted to analyze their entire collection, but they also wanted to genreify it because they wanted to make changes to their specific segments of their collection. And they thought that doing it by genres would be a good way to split up the collection. There are tons of different ways that you can split up a collection like this. You could do it alphabetically. You could do it backwards alphabetically. I guess there aren't infinite ways you could do it, but there are a lot of different ways that you can split up a collection. This person chose to do genre. And so for that reason, we kept call number here, only so that we could sort it by call number. So you can see we have all of our adventure fiction here. Later down, we've got fantasy fiction, historical fiction, so on and so forth. And what I did to help them genreify this collection was I created other tabs down here. So here's all of our adventure fiction copy pasted, our fantasy fiction, historical fiction. So effectively, these are now separate collections. They're separate small collections within this large collection. So we've got both. With all this information sorted as it is, we can meet our 2 objectives that we set out to do. Objective 1 being to analyze the whole collection, and objective 2 being to make small changes to the small collections. Okay, that was me saying the word collection a lot. Are we ready to move on to actually uploading these?
Yeah, I wanted to point one thing out because I was noticing as I was looking at this list that we're already seeing a lot of duplicated titles. So for instance, on this screen alone, we can see there's a whole bunch of copies there of The Stranger. And that is not something that you need to worry about if you are cleaning up your own information. The collection analysis tool will take care of that when we upload this. So if you're thinking about things that you need to be keeping an eye out for, do not worry about that book that you have 16 copies of. You can leave them all in there.
For sure. It's a great note. And it's something that people notice right away, because in a second, we're going to upload this whole collection and you're going to see we are not going to have 4,700 titles, not even close. And we won't have a whole lot of non-matches either. So what I'm going to do for this one is I'm going to upload this as a CSV file. And there are a ton of different ways you can do this. On Google Sheets, which is where I'm working, you can actually just go up to File and you can download this as a CSV. But you could also open up Excel and copy and paste these columns in and then upload it. What should I do? Should I make an Excel file or should I just use this function?
No, I think we just go from here. If you're using Excel, you can always save your file as a CSV. That's the most straightforward way to do that. So you'll see in the Save As options, you can always pick CSV from the dropdown. We're happy to help you do that.
Always, always, always. Okay, so I'm going to go up to File, Download, and just grab this as a CSV. So you can see it downloaded it up here. I'm back on my list analysis reports page. I'm going to click upload a CSV file. We want to create a new report, and we're going to call this March 21 sample whole collection. And this is collection all as our category. So I'll choose this from my downloads. Hey, oh, interesting. Thought I saw .xlsx, but it was a CSV. Okay, so we get this little pop-up that says your collection contains 4,700 items and it may take a few minutes to process. That's normal. Pretty much anytime you're uploading more than like 400 titles to this page, you're going to see this. So it does take a minute, and that is fine. That is no cause for panic. You can also walk away because you're going to get an email when it's ready. So just rest comfortably knowing that this work is being processed and you can do something else in the meantime. Like you could explore a book on TeachingBooks and explore some of the resources here. I thought since we had to kill a little bit of time, I could show you one of my favorite features that never makes it into a webinar, which is book cover jigsaw. So here's a jigsaw puzzle for The Girl Who Drank the Moon, which is, in my opinion, a really beautiful cover.
Yes.
And we can just, you know, take a little bit of time, wait for my email notification to come in, and just do a little puzzle to get it.
Find out how good you are at puzzles.
Yeah, how quickly can I do this?
This is really relaxing, Jake.
Thank you. I'm glad that you're enjoying it.
You're doing great.
I
Thank
think maybe
you.
we should have timed you.
It times
There
it
is timing me up there.
automatically.
Oh, yes, it does. That's right. I forgot.
Yeah, lucky me. Okay. And these, yeah, these slot right into place when you found the right spot.
Wish real puzzles did that.
I know. I think when we did the trial run of this, it took we got like okay, I got the email.
There we go.
I was gonna say
Sorry,
it
girl,
only took about like
drink
42 seconds. Okay. So I got the email from TeachingBooks. I see it on my phone. That the collection analysis report is ready. So we can say goodbye to the puzzle for now.
Something to note here is that email, it might take a little longer, a little less long, depending on, how many books it is, what we've got going on the site. But if, it's been hours and you're not seeing that, please do reach out to us, check your spam folder and all those good things, but let us know if you're not seeing the email that you're expecting.
Yes. We're going to refresh the page now because you can see that it processed below, but I want to refresh. This number may change a little bit after you refresh. So here we go. Going back down, and we've got 2,321 items in this collection. And your first reaction might be, oh my God, that's less than half of the books in there. But as Susanna said, a lot of those were duplicates, and we can actually look back through the list and see that there are a ton of duplicates. So it takes about 10 seconds sometimes to open one of these big lists, but then you'll see at the top. Please note this report provides information for 2,321 titles. We were unable to find any matches for 577 titles. Data for any unmatched, duplicate, or weeded titles have been excluded from this report. So what that means is pretty self-explanatory. What the information that you're going to see as we scroll down this report does not reflect, it only reflects the titles that matched. And that means that TeachingBooks found a copy of that same title in our catalog. But this is a ton of information for 2,300 titles. You can see there are 18 genres and cultural experience areas. It's almost entirely fiction. And I could see, what are these 8 nonfiction books if I'm curious. We can see it's about 30% diverse. Just under half of them have won awards. There are very few graphic novels, and the median publication year is 2012. So for a collection this big, these are pretty good numbers, depending on what you're looking for. Like I've seen a lot of collections that you pop in like this and the publication year median is 2002, because giant collections are really hard to refresh. And so that's part of what this tool can show you. So we'll pause for a second and just remind you, this took us about 15 minutes to import a collection of 2,300 books. Now, other services that offer collection analysis tools might tell you to budget 4 to 6 months to process a collection of this size. But you don't have that time, and we know that. That's why we've built this program. Erin and Leisha and Susanna and I are working on these webinars and working on communicating about these tools because we know that we're talking to people who don't have any time to pour 6 months into a collection analysis process. You want to get this information quickly. You want to get the insights quickly. So it's pretty cool. that we were able to get so much information on 2,300 titles in just a few minutes. That's just something that I wanted to note from the get-go. Alicia, I saw you on mute for a sec. Was there something you wanted to say about this? Okay, cool. Just checking. So yeah, we've done it. Now, there are non-matches here, and that's also a big part of this process. And you might be curious about how you deal with non-matches. That's one of the FAQs that we're going to answer later. I'll save that for later, but just know that this is download a spreadsheet link is really imperative. It's again, it's not ideal. We'd like this to all be on TeachingBooks eventually, so that you never have to go into Excel once you've processed a list. But if you want to see non-matching titles, those all live in the spreadsheet, and we'll get more to that later on. Okay, so we've uploaded our first collection, and we've shown how that works. Susanna, given our goals and objectives we set at the beginning, what's the next step if we wanted to look at one of these smaller sections?
So we got a ton of information there. That's a lot of titles. It's a lot of information. And depending on our goals, that might not be sort of the best entry point for taking a look at this particular collection. So we know this has already been split up into genre, and that one of the goals here was to learn more about what's going on in each particular genre section. And those are also just sort of more manageable chunks to take a closer look at. So we're going to take a look at our adventure fiction now. And we're actually going to show you a few different ways that you can upload these. Jake mentioned earlier that one of the options is copy and pasting either title and author or ISBN. And so we're going to test that out with the adventure fiction here and see what we get.
Yep, thanks. All right, so we'll start off with, as Susanna said, copying, pasting titles and authors. So the first thing I'm going to do is just grab up here at 2. I'm not going to include title and author. I'm just going to start it at A2, all the way down past all of our duplicates, and copy from here. So now I'm going to go back to our list analysis reports page and choose this option, paste a list of titles and authors. So I'll click this, and again, we want to create a new report. So here's all of our titles. And here's all of our authors. And we can call this adventure fiction title author sample. Now this one should go really quickly because it's only about 185 titles with a lot of duplicates in there. So that only took 8 or 9 seconds. And you can see we've got 111 titles with 27 non-matches. Let's pause there and do our second way of importing. So we're going to go back to collection analysis reports. This time we're going to paste a list of ISBNs. So here we go back to our spreadsheet. We're going to grab all the ISBNs and throw these in. Adventure fiction, ISBN sample. Was about the same amount of time, so like another 6 or 7 seconds. Okay, this time we have 107 titles and 58 non-matches. We're going to do one more. This time we're going to go back to collection analysis reports, and we're going to do this upload a CSV file. So back here, now we're going to go file, download CSV, and this should just grab the adventure fiction one. Yep. Oops. So in this box, we'll drag this in. Adventure CSVs. Okay, so we've uploaded the same set of titles in 3 different ways. They both took about 7 seconds, but we've got some different numbers here. Back on the collection analysis reports, remember that all of your reports are saved down here. So here are my 3 lists of the same group. We got 111 titles in the title author sample, 107 in the ISBN sample, and 114 in the CSV sample. We're showing you this because we want to demonstrate that the CSV method tends to be the most reliable. So if you can do that, if it's possible for you to have all title, author, and ISBN and put them in a spreadsheet and upload them, that tends to be the best way to get matches. But if you only have one, if you only have title and author, or you only have ISBN, you can still get pretty much all of them. So that is just one thing we wanted to be clear about at the outset. So let's now move to actually trying to augment a list. We've uploaded the whole collection and analyzed it. We've shown you 3 different ways to upload a fragment of the collection and kind of compare and contrast it between those methods. Susanna, now I want to upload another chunk, and I want some help finding titles that meet needs in that chunk.
All right. So let's get our historical fiction section uploaded here.
So back here, we're going to find historical fiction.
You get
Here
to
we
watch
go.
the CSV process a few times here. So
We're going to do it again. So there's a ton of duplicates we can already see. These are all this is going to become one things fall apart. One go tell it on the mountain. File, download, CSV. Oops. Okay. One more time, we're going to go to upload a CSV file. Drag this in.
the drag and drop.
Okay. This is our historical fiction sample to augment. Okay, so this one needs this one needs some time to cook again. I assume this is going to happen really quickly because it's only 379 items. So we can actually just watch this happen.
Play some hold music. Ding, 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 ding.
And I got the email,
So fast.
Good.
but it
You
didn't
guys
upload
didn't
here.
want to hear
But I
me.
did get the email. So that's why sometimes you just want to refresh the page. And actually, this is a really niche tip. Okay, it actually did load. But if you are going to refresh the page, I would recommend just clicking into the address bar and hitting enter again instead of refreshing, because this will ask you if you want to submit the dialog box again, and then you're going to get duplicate lists, and it's kind of annoying. So here we are, a historical fiction list. We're going to augment this list. We've got 151 match titles, 27 non-match titles, and here's our at a glance info.
This is already looking pretty good. We've got 14 genres, we've got 15 cultural experiences, 46% diverse, but I think we can make it better.
So where on this list should we start if we're looking for gaps?
There's a wonderful little section at the bottom called Not Included that I'm a big fan of, because you can see laid out very clearly what cultural experiences are you missing and what genres are you missing. And you may say, well, this is a YA collection. I'm not expecting to see any beginning or early readers in here. And that's wonderful. That's, what we're looking for. But we are probably, hopefully looking to meet a wide range of cultural experiences reflected here. And maybe Middle Eastern or disability is something that we're really hoping to add to this collection, or we're really surprised to see show up on that not included list. And there are a few different ways to find titles to meet that need. But one of my favorites is a tool that's actually built into this report. So if we scroll down a little bit further, we'll see the adding and weeding titles. And we can do a customized search here, basically. So we can say, all right, we're looking for disability. We know that was on our list. We know this is our historical fiction collection, so we want to make sure we've got the historical fiction genre. And we know this is a YA collection, so we want to limit ourselves to that 7 to 12 grade level. And then just hit search. And my favorite thing about doing it this way is that you can see at the top in that filter criteria, we've got that grade level, the cultural area, and genre, And we also have it specified that these titles are not already on that list or that report that we were just looking at.
Mhm.
So you don't have to worry about remembering what 100 and whatever 70 some titles we were just looking at. This is going to be things that aren't there.
And it's a really cool feature because we know we didn't have any disability titles and we searched for disability titles, so those definitely wouldn't have been included. But
Right.
let's say if we scroll back up to this balance of cultural experience areas, there are 32 African American books here that fall into the historical fiction collection that we're working with. So let's say we run a search for African American instead of disability. We do the same search. Now we know that of these 156 books that show up, none of them are the 32 that are already in this collection. So it's a really powerful tool if you're searching, if you're working with a big collection and you're looking for new books. Like if we were in our list of 2,300 books and we were looking for African American books or any diverse books, that guarantees that everything that you're seeing here is not in that library or in that collection that you're looking at. Okay, so back to our search result. We've got 44 books here. These are new historical fiction books that deal with the disability cultural experience area, and they're for older readers.
Right.
Susanna, where to? And Aaron and Alicia, if you see books here that you must have in this collection, let us know.
I'm going to say, we can keep filtering here. We can
You left me my own devices and
add some other things. But I also noticed that with this particular collection, the publication median year was a little bit older than I would like. So one of the things we can do is actually sort this list. It sorts by default, but you can switch that to year published. And then that's automatically going to put the newest books at the top. And so we've got some there right away that maybe we want to add to this particular list because they're going to meet those criteria that we were looking for, but they are also going to definitely raise that publication year a little bit.
Wow, what a cover.
Oh, that's a great, I love that book.
Wow.
That's a wonderful one.
This is a really cool cover. This
We
looks
should
like...
add that to our list.
Okay, sounds good. We'll make a note of it.
So we can do a few different things here. We can select a single book. So there's going to be a little plus sign at the bottom there, add to reading list. And what we're going to do here is actually build a list that we can then add into our report. But we want it to be a separate list because we want to be able to say, maybe these are titles we're thinking about purchasing, or maybe they're titles we're going to move from one branch to another if we're working in different spaces.
And this is the same way that you would do this for a small collection or similar to a way that you would build the collection in the first place. So all this kind of links back together. These tools are all interlocked. So how we're going to make this list of titles we want to add is the same way we would make the list for small collections or adding those in. So you'll come to be very familiar with this method. Okay, so we want to add The Weight of Our Sky to a new list called historical fiction titles to add.
Scroll down a bit because Jake has too many lists.
I do have too many lists. Gotta clean them.
We can also do add multiple titles to reading lists. So if there's a whole bunch there, you can open up that little menu, and then we can just select a few here. The Degenerates is a great one. Spirit Bears Its Teeth. Maybe Copy Boy. Get a few in here.
So yeah, let's just say we got a bunch of those. Here are new historical fiction titles we want to put into this list. And now we know that when we import these in, we'll have titles that are in that disability cultural experience area.
And something I really love about this is that you can test out what that would look like, what impact that will have before you've bought the books, before you've physically gotten them. So you can upload that list to the report that we were already looking at and see what difference does this make? Where do we see shifts in the information without actually spending the money? So I think that's, kind of a magical little thing to be able to
Yeah.
out and see what would happen if I bought these books.
And that's something that we, in previous webinars, will show you over and over again. So I could go back into this report and I could ask my friends what other cultural experience areas we want to add historical fiction books for. And we could do this a bunch of different times for Latino, for South Asian, for African American, and just add more and more in. But we want to move on to some of the frequently asked questions. So we'll just show you one. So here we are, we've made our lists. I'm just going to add one more. I'll add second chances to this list. And now I'm going to view this reading list. And here we are on a custom reading list. So again, this is the same kind of page where we started this webinar. We were looking at a custom reading list from last week's webinar, and you'll remember this list analysis report button. There's another list analysis report button over here on the left sidebar. And this one lets you do exactly what Susanna was just alluding to, where if you click this, it will bring up a very familiar screen where it asks you where you want to import these titles. And if I click this, I can either create a brand new report with just these 8 books on it, or I can import them into our whole collection or into our adventure fiction samples, but they belong here. They belong in our historical fiction sample to augment. And if I click this import button, I will get right away V2 of this list that now provides information for 159 titles instead of 151. And you can see, even at a glance, we've added that one cultural experience area. If I go down to not included, now we only have 2, where previously we had 4. And I think we even caught one genre. I can't remember what it was.
We got some historical horror in there.
We got horror and sports.
Yeah, oh, and sports. There we go.
Yeah. So we added, with only 8 books and 1 search, we addressed 2 genres and 2 cultural experience, or 3 genres and 2 cultural experience areas. That's pretty cool. That's a lot of power. And if you want to see how those numbers line up, there's even a handy tool back on the collection analysis reports page that lets you compare between reports. So here's where we started. Here's where we have decided to stop because we want to move on to FAQs. We could keep doing this, and this is how these lists compare. We added 8 books, 2 genres. The top 3 genres stayed the same, as did the top 3 cultural experience areas. But yeah, we can see the books that we added are fiction and that they are diverse. They won awards. We didn't really bring this publication year up because we added 8 books into a list of 150. Math is going to math. So there's only so much you can do. But you could do a ton more, and then you would see a big change there. So that's where we want to close out this section, is just if you imagine the possible changes and impact that you could have if you were to do this augmentation work for every genre in this list. You know, add 55 new books to your science fiction, 55 new books to your fantasy fiction, and they're all diverse, they're all new. Then by the time you import them all and add them into this spreadsheet, when you import your whole collection again with all these new titles added, you're going to see some really big differences. And that kind of impact, it's pretty amazing to be able to do that from just your computer without spending any money. Like you weren't, as Susanna said earlier, you're not purchasing these books. You're not going into the stacks yourself and adding them and seeing how the bookshelf changes. You are just experimenting. And you can see some big differences that are made. Anything else y'all want to add in as it relates to this process before we move on to FAQs?
I think it can be really empowering to have, you know, at least in the libraries that I've worked in, you had like your section that you got to develop and curate and weed over the course of a year, however many years. And so it can be empowering to have this data in front of you. And like Susanna said, play around with additions before you spend money on said additions and see how it would impact your collection, and it's just a great opportunity to see, you know, where the gaps are potentially, and adding more that you know your audience is going to be super jazzed about or would just benefit from that wider access or information about a certain cultural experience.
Mhm. And we know this is a ton of information. Like what Erin's describing, it's a comprehensive process. And it's taken time for all of us to learn this tool, learn how to use it, and to teach and train with it. But I promise you that within a couple of days of using this tool, you'll get the hang of it. And if you incorporate it into your ongoing routines as you're just working through collections naturally and doing the work that you already do, it will start to become second nature to you, not second nature to you.
And the more you play around with it and tweak and add and analyze, the easier it gets, but also you can't really like break it. You can't, you just keep doing it and iterating. Like it's hard to make mistakes per se.
Yeah,
Because
absolutely.
you could just start over.
And if you do break it, that's where
then that's where
would
we
love
come
to
in.
know, because that's how we
Right.
get better, and that's how we help you. So don't be afraid to break it. Breaking it.
Hopefully I didn't like unpack the box, you know, release, open Pandora's box. That's what I'm trying to say.
No, that's good.
Nah, that's not gonna happen.
Okay. So let's hop back to our slideshow for a sec and talk about some frequently asked questions, because these came to us from users. We know that this is floating around in your minds as you're thinking about these tools or thinking about jumping in. So we wanted to address them. So first up, what if I have a ton of titles in my collection? I said 40,000 plus, but that's an arbitrary number. The upper limit on the collection analysis tool is 10,000 titles. So that's the most you can upload in one spreadsheet at one time. So really, if you have more than 10,000 titles, all that means is you just need to upload parts of the collection. So if you have 40,000 titles in your collection, then you'll need to upload 4 or 5 different chunks of the collection, and then you can see what matched, what didn't match, and that's something that I'm happy to work through with you. I've worked with a ton of people who have done that, and across those 5 different imports and 45,000 titles, there actually are only like 9,500 unduplicated matched titles, which sounds like not very many, but you know, we saw what this other sample collection looks like. We know that you've got hardcovers, paperbacks, audiobooks, ebooks. You know, you could have 8 different copies in your ILS of the same title. So the answer to this first question is we'll split it up and we'll help you with it, and we can try to condense it later to get it to a chunk that feels more meaningful and works for your needs. Follow-up question on that. What if my 40,000 titles are split up across different buildings and branches of my library?
So I'm going to talk a little bit about this because in my past work life, I was doing collection development work for a public library system where we had multiple buildings, we had multiple branches, and we had bookmobile collections. And so I think, you know, you have to ask yourself, what is your specific goal at this time? Do you really want to look at your whole collection as one? Are you thinking about this as one big collection? In which case you might want to break it up into the chunks that Jake was just talking about. Or maybe what you're looking at is what is in each individual building. You know, are you serving different audiences? We had branches that were in, you know, very different neighborhoods. And so I was always trying to think about, you know, is this collection in this building meeting the needs of the people who are actually walking in the door? So there's a lot of different ways that you can break down a collection and approach it, whether it's genre or location or alphabet. You know, we can look at this a million different ways, but I think it all comes back to that question of like, what is your goal? What are you hoping to get out of this? And what are you hoping to change?
And
Thanks, Suzanne.
if it helps narrow it down, I think maybe focusing it's just on one branch, because maybe that branch serves a specific population or neighborhood that would have different needs than another location, depending on how big your system or how many branches your library serves, or how big your community is.
Right. Yeah, you are the driver and we are helping you drive. So whatever you think is the way to split up the collection, whatever makes the most sense based on your knowledge of your job and your community, that's what you should do. And we are here to help you do that and help you accomplish that goal. Okay, number 2, how do I export book info from my own library databases? This is definitely the hardest part of the process if you're working with if you're working with thousands of titles. You know, let's say if getting from original output to the edited whole collection is point A to point B, starting at point A is a very hard place to start because everyone is using different software. People are using Destiny, Follett, Tidal Wave, Mackin. You know, people's books are in all kinds of different places, and every library is different. So all I can really tell you when it comes to this question is reach out for help. I have learned a ton about all these different ILS software. I know how to do it on Follett now, and I know how to do it on Destiny. So I'm always looking to learn new ways to export title info and get it into a digestible format for our tool. So come to us, ask us for help, and we'll figure it out. We'll put our heads together and make sure that we can get you get your book info out of the library management software. The last one we have here is, I have thousands of non-matching titles. What happened? So here we're gonna go back to that little bit of foreshadowing we did. I'm gonna head back to that report that we started with our 2,300 titles. And it's gonna take a few seconds to open, as it always does. But when it opens, we're gonna dive in to this question of non-matches. Okay, so we said it's about downloading the spreadsheet, so that's where we're gonna start. All of this that you see on the web is also available for you in spreadsheet format. So you can always download a spreadsheet either with this link here or the link on the sidebar, and it'll open up an Excel sheet in one moment. And here we go. I'll make this larger. This tells you everything. We've got your title, author, ISBN. We also have where you can find it on TeachingBooks, what genres this title meets, whether it's diverse or not, what cultural experiences are within this title, when it came out. All the information that you know from the report is also on Excel. The non-matches live at the bottom of the spreadsheet, where everything from column D onward stops. So we can just scroll down to where this title ID stops. And everything here and down, these are our non-matching titles. And there are certain reasons why a title might not match. The simplest one is that a title just might not be on TeachingBooks. Like here's Attack on Titan Before the Fall. TeachingBooks does not have a ton of manga on the site, and so that book, if I saw this in your list, I would not be surprised, and I can know that this is a TeachingBooks catalog issue, not a data formatting issue. You'll see a lot of books like this, or you know, what's the book version of a documentary? Like those, like info books about reptiles. DK. Like those tend to not be on TeachingBooks either.
Yes.
Susanna, you might have a better way of talking about those books.
A lot of your series nonfiction is not going to show up in our collection.
Thank you.
Unfortunately, we don't have resources for it. And so if we don't have resources that match it, it doesn't end up in the collection. We do have some adult titles, but not a huge selection. So you'll see a lot on this particular list because it is a YA collection. A lot of them are adult titles that we just don't have in our collection. At
Right,
this
like
time.
The Silence of the Lambs.
Yeah.
Kurt Vonnegut. There's Stephen King around here. The Pack. Oh, The Outsider. Like, yeah, these are books that are outside of that YA realm, so they probably won't be in teaching books. There are some books though. You just always want to take a look at this and see what is living in this non-matching section, because if you see a book like, I know it's here somewhere,
I saw, or there you go,
1984.
1984.
Yeah, here's 1984 by George Orwell. That's 100% a book that I would think would be in teaching books.
Yeah.
So why is this not in the collection? Well, sometimes it is. So if we search, you can see this is spelled out 1984. If we search 1984, it actually is up here and it's matched. So that's one of those times where a duplicate title might not be deduped because it's spelled differently. Or, you know, there's a ton of these with subtitles.
I saw Red Badge of Courage showed up on here a couple of times. And that's a title, again, I know that we have on the site, but the two versions that have the, you know, and other stories and other favorites are not ones that we have with that subtitle.
Right.
So
Thankfully, we did have a non-subtitle version of that title that did match successfully. But if that hadn't been up there, we would have just, you know, you just kind of have to manually go into this and know that this is how you're going to have to match the title. And this is not, again, this is not something that you have to do yourself, because I'm always happy to do that. I spent a lot of time in people's spreadsheets doing text to column and all these funky little data formatting tips and tricks to get as many matches as possible. So it's something to be aware of and something not to get discouraged about. Instead, reach out for help and we'll take a look and we'll get your titles matched. If
Can I
anyone
add
else has, oh yeah, Alicia.
Can I add to that? I've also noticed this, if you're in a school library and you purchase Scholastic printed books, you know, titles, those ISBNs a lot of times are different and they don't match. So trying again with the title has helped with that. So that's another reason that they may not match.
thank you, Alicia. That's a great tip. Yeah, and you know, sometimes you can just go in on Teaching Books and search for the title and see what you find too, and you know, experiment a little bit.
Yeah, I do that all the time. I'll just be in a, if I have a list with majority non-matches, I'll just kind of scroll around to see if there's something that looks like it should be in teaching books and search for it. If it doesn't show up, I feel okay. If it does, I know I've got some work to do.
Yeah.
So those are some of the questions we wanted to touch on here. I know our time is getting a little bit tight, so we're going to move on. But if anyone has questions at any point, please feel free to email us. We'll have our contact info again at the end of this as we get to those slides in a minute. But just know we are always here to help and we mean it. Thank you. Thank you for using these tools and for being curious, and we want to make sure that you feel supported. Okay, so just moving through to the end of this webinar. Here's a flow chart that you can find in the handbooks and in some of the quick start guides. These are just a visual representation of the work that you've done. So you begin the process by identifying a collection that you want to analyze. And then you think about what purpose that collection serves for your community. You put it in a format that works for the tool. And then you begin the cyclical process of importing, reflecting on the findings, thinking about whether what you're seeing in front of you meets the needs that you, the goals that you have for this collection. If the answer is no, then you can continue the cycle by adding and weeding titles until the answer is yes. And at that point, we have a ton of other materials that you can use to help demonstrate the value of the work to anyone in your community. We have great implementation plans that summarize all of the choices and decisions you've made and put them in one document so that you can send them to your supervisor or your superintendent and say, hey, you know, we need these books. They're going to help us in these 5 categories, and they're going to really meet these needs, and we can do it in a cost-effective way. So there's the flow chart and some about resources. And I'll turn it over to my friends Aaron and Leisha to talk about some of the events we've got coming up. First up, we've got our intro webinars, intro webinar in Missouri.
Yeah, so this is a great one to attend if you're just getting started, but it's also, I'm sure, is going to be a great recap, a time to maybe get some questions answered if you have been using, but still want to get some more information. So join us on the 28th. That will be a very informative place to start. And then, believe it or not, we're wrapping up and ending our second semester. We'll be recapping and talking about the collection analysis initiative overall. So please join us when you can, but also reach out anytime that you need Jake or myself for help.
I'll just repeat what Leisha said. Basically, that we're excited about our getting started on April 4th. It's a great time to refresh if it's been a while since you've used the tool, or if you're just getting started. It's a great time to, bring a question, or if you have a pinch point that you want to talk about, we can potentially cover that. And then we'll have our recap on May 9th. And then, like Leisha said, you can always email or contact Jake or I if you have something specific. And I think the next slide will segue into other ways. Oh, we have our other thematic workshops. April 11th, celebrating African American youth literature, and April 25th, phonics and collection analysis. So really excited about those. Now we have office hours. Take it away, Leisha.
Office hours. Jake and I will be around from 4 to 5 p.m. on these dates. Jump in, stay the whole time, learn from everyone that's here, get some demos of a feature that you're looking for or would like some more info for. Or if you only have 10 minutes, but you have a specific question, or you just want to learn during those 10 minutes, just join us when you can, and we're around to answer your questions and help, and we love to give those demos and walk you through things. So that's what these office hours are for, are to be more specific, and maybe even some smaller group or one-on-one time. So
And we also have these dates for Ohio, where Aaron and I will be there.
Yes. Our Ohio office hours, no question is too big or too small. Come and hang with Jake and I. Or if you come to one of these webinars and you're like, uh-oh, I have lots of follow-up questions, come to office hours.
And we want to be really clear, these initiatives are not stopping in May.
Nope.
We are only posting office hours and webinars through that, because we will continue to do office hours through the summer, but the webinars take a break till the fall. The purpose of all of this webinar, the one next week in Missouri, and after that in Ohio, and all of these office hours, the purpose is just to give you entry points, through ongoing entry points throughout the course of the year, so that you always feel like you can jump in and you never feel like you're behind, because you're not. Even if you registered 2 years ago and you haven't jumped in yet, there's someone who registered yesterday and is getting started, or someone who registered yesterday and is not going to get started for another 6 months. So you're never behind. There are always these opportunities to get started and to learn about the programs and the tools, and you know that you have help. You can reach me, you can reach Leisha, you can reach Aaron, and you can also reach Susanna. So we are all here for you to give you the tools that you need to be successful as you're working through this program. That brings us to the end of our webinar, right on time. We budgeted just enough time for this.
Woohoo.
So this was a
Look at us.
huge amount of information. That's why we recorded it, so that you can review this and look back on it. But really, just please feel free to reach out for help, because that's why we're doing this. It's not only to support you when you need it, but to connect with you and to hear about what you're working on, and how we can support the wonderful work that you do in schools and libraries in Ohio and Missouri every day. So we hope you'll join in, and we hope you'll share this with your colleagues. At this point, I'm going to stop the recording. So thanks to all who were joining us here today. Thanks for those who are watching after the fact. And we'll see you next time. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Everyone.